just thinking about, like, why would I hold out? Why would I, you're giving me all this money to play. People are negotiating for like 10 more million or 20. I'm like, I'm telling my agent, they're ready to give you 25. I'm like, let's go. He's like, no, I can still get more. As a young person, that's the most money you've ever heard of, but the agent feels I'm like, let's go. I want to play. I'm in the parking lot.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
What is up, Juice Kingdom? Welcome in to Hang Time with Dustin Colquitt. I am not Dustin Colquitt. I'm Hayley Lewis, and this is Dustin Colquitt, as you can see to my side. And we're going to be talking about a lot of fun things today. We have an incredible interview coming your way. But first, we're going to be talking about preseason game number 2, which wrapped up on Saturday. Kansas City has one more to go, so it's going to be this coming Thursday before the preseason. Has a perfect little bow tied on it, and we can move on to the regular season. Dustin, first comments about the second preseason showing that we've been able to see from Kansas City. First time back at Arrowhead. I know that's special for the guys.
Yeah, definitely. And anytime you can get as many kicks into that stadium as you can, as you know, that it gets super windy. It's not like the windy like politics in Chicago, but it's super windy. They built something new in 2010 that hugs up against the stadium. I remember when the renovations were going, there's 4 cranes with flags going all different directions. I was like, no way. I think they've made it worse, except for it's beautiful. Just like the punts were in that preseason game.
What a transition!
Yeah, no, and look, I'm super pumped about this guy. He gets a new start, a new beginning to his career, and looks like he's holding great for Harrison Butker, and James. I'm a little worried about James. Obviously, he's got a shoulder thing, but I was in that room many seasons with him, and man, that guy had something going on, and he would play through everything, whether it's a knee or elbow or finger or toe, or like he is. I mean, he deserves not only on the Pro Bowl, but that all Joe team, because he's constantly, and not a lot of people know this, not only is he one of the faster guys in the team, second highest vertical on the team.
Winchester. You're talking about James Winchester.
I'm talking about James Winchester.
Mr. 35-year-old. Okay.
It's crazy. It was in the room at the time. It was Willie Gay, then him, and so and nobody knows this, but like he is such like he is.
It should be in his Twitter bio.
I would put it in there if I was that. Like I have a 17.5-inch vertical, and I think not really. It's something the 20s maybe, but his is like 42.5, or it's like unbelievable. So I was really encouraged with what they have going on. Obviously, you have Dave Tobe at the helm. They're on special teams. I still can't get used to the new kickoff.
I know.
It is so
it's weird.
I don't know how that's gonna. When you have Washington Redskins have a 95% touchback percentage, and everybody kind of follows suits after that, and unless you fair catch it, I know it's in the zone and all this stuff, but you think it turns it into a punt, you may have more injuries. It's yet to be determined.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and it caused a lot of hiccups, obviously, in week 1 when they were playing against the Jags. We saw the two major hiccups. We saw McCole Hardman, on the 1-yard line going back in, touchback, and then gets rolled to safety, different things like that. And then we also see, just what we think are mishaps, but it's really also just trying to understand the new rule. Like, yes, of course, they're working it every single day. Dave Tobe has said that continuously through OTAs and through training camp, but it's changing it so much so that even watching it as a fan or a member of the media, you're just like, what is going on? How are they going to learn this? Is this going to change the way that games go that are essentially like essential wins for Kansas City because of special team, maybe mishaps that it's almost hard to practice out of?
Sure. And I mean, it essentially turns the kicker sometimes into a linebacker type that needs to make a tackle. And you saw Younghoe Koo in Atlanta make that really good tackle. We saw D. Williams, punt returner out of the University of Tennessee, my alma mater. he made a sweet open field tackle. It is exposing whether you can tackle or not. And I know Dave Tobe is all over that. He's kind of the president of special teams throughout the league. He's been like a core guy in Chicago now, or Philly and Chicago and Kansas City, and very trusted. He'll have it. What you have to realize is too, what he is trying to teach to the 44 guys that he is in control of, and especially he's been second to the head coach, by the way. The head coach got everybody, and then you have 44 guys in special teams that you're using all the time. There's a straddle rule on the sidelines in the NFL that you can actually straddle the end line and reach in and pick a ball up, and it'll be out of bounds.
Right.
Out of bounds, and you get the ball at 35. And so I think that there was a little confusion there, because it also says in the NFL, if you try to catch a kick and the impetus, if it hits off somebody and the impetus of the kick goes into the end zone, you can also down it.
Right.
And so it counts as a touchback. And so, it creates all kinds of gray lines.
Yeah, it's confusing to explain. It's confusing to watch. And I'm sure it's very confusing for these guys who have also played one way their entire life. And now things are, things do change, obviously. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of change at a very high level, and very quickly. It's all being thrown on them very quickly. You did mention Winchester, which I do want to talk about. So Noah Gray came in and was the one who was filling in for Winchester, has never filled in that position. Did a pretty decent job. I don't know how much you watched of Noah Gray, but to have a guy like Winchester who has been dependent on by this team for over a decade, you said he's had a lot of nicks and bruises over the years. You were a very close part of that unit. Do you see this as being a big issue? Do you see this as him bouncing back? I mean, that's a key person that you might not hear about on the highlight reel, but is so essential to making sure the special teams unit runs.
Yeah, I definitely, see him making it back. I think that's probably yet to be determined, but just being with him in that room and seeing, him getting, a 330-pound defensive lineman stepping on his hands, and then he's coming back the next punt or field goal and snapping, with a pinky smashed or whatever it is. I've seen him endure some of the hardest, with his father a few years ago. Speaking of hardships, he was honored down in Oklahoma, flew back in, played the next day. I mean, the guy from an emotional and a physical is a hardened veteran. So if he's able to play, he's gonna be back, and they need him. He's a staple and a captain like guy. Finally gets his own room. After he's one of the oldest guys. You said he's 35 years old. 2 years out of college before he got his first shot in Philly. Then
that's wild.
As fast as we could in Kansas City, because he was a sub 4.4 tight end at Oklahoma, and they converted him because Coach Heupel told James, "Hey, we got boosters and guys on scholarship. You're a walk-on. You're probably not going to play. I'd snap a football if I were you," and he did. And that's why he's had such a long career, because he was able to say, "Hey, tight end's not going to be my thing."
Yeah,
and snapping is going to be. Yes, his father was a specialist, a punter at Oklahoma, and so I love working with that guy.
We also talked about punt placement. Thought it was better this week versus last week. Of course, it's still preseason. There's a lot of things being ironed out. But you kind of mentioned Matt talking through his game. What did you see out of him? Are that's a hard position to be in, also with a guy like Harrison Butker, who you know how important. We saw the difficulties with Tommy Townsend. We know how important the hold is. So punt placement and holding. How do you think he's doing so far?
Yeah, I think he's doing great, and James has just had such a good 4, 5, 6, 7 years stretch where he's just been the best in the league. You've seen that in the contracts that he's signed over here the last few years. And I think with Matt, the biggest thing that I can say is, man, he's punting well, and just to treat it like you're in college again. I know it's a bigger stage, obviously, and he spent 2 years out, so he deserves a little grace. He's going to come in, and I think he's a game changer. He can definitely hit, really, really long balls. And as you know, in the NFL they'll game plan that up. You have corner safeties, they'll double your gunners. And so you got to get good. Like Tommy was at really putting that ball high in the air. But I like that. I like that move. And I think he's just going to get better and better as we go.
Okay, so good things coming out of preseason game 2. Like I said, Thursday is going to be the last one for the preseason games. We'll wrap it all up and then move on to the regular season on September 5th, which is getting here closer and closer, less than 2 weeks. Less than 3 weeks, almost 2 weeks away. I'm getting ahead of myself. But anyways, let's transition onto our guest today. We have a very special guest, Dustin. This was a really good find that you were able to hook us up with. A guy who was in the league for 12 years, 6 All-Pro selections, an incredible person, not only his story, but his upbringing, what he came from, how he made himself the person he is today, how he credits his parents and the people around him still, and the coaching staff that he was at Penn. So I'll let you kind of introduce this one, because especially your guys' personal relationship, but we got a really special interview for you guys coming up.
Yeah, Tamba Hali this week on Hang Time is just one of my dearest friends in Kansas City. He got there a year after me. It was the 20th overall pick in the 2006 NFL draft, where Herm saw towards the end of Dick's time in Kansas City that we have to build a defense that is built for winning playoff games and a sustainable future. Tamba is one of the best leaders that I've ever been around. When he took the field, you knew it, because he took the field from the sidelines the same way he did when he was trying to sack a quarterback. So he was running down to that goal line, and every quarterback in the league knew we have about 2 seconds and the ball's got to be gone. Because when you have Tamba and Justin Houston on one side of the ball, the bookends, and you had guys like Don Terry Poe and Alan Bailey and these guys that could intermix and do stunts in the middle, that you're in a lot of trouble. He is one of my good friends. Always great to hear his face, or see his face, hear his voice, everything he's doing with literacy, Kansas City, flag football in Liberia, and just a staple in the Kansas City Chiefs community.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Well, first off, we have a special guest here, and we, of course, appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Dustin and I know, have a ton of questions for you, and just to also, learn your expertise, not only on the football field, but apparently with jiu-jitsu and other things that you've been doing since you retired back in 2021. So first off, welcome to the show, and we'll dive right in here. Dustin, I'll throw the first question. We really want to hear just about how you've been watching the Chiefs now that you've been a part, 12 years you spent with Kansas City. What do you think about what this franchise is doing now? Because you were a really big part of the building blocks to be able to get them where they are right now.
Well, I mean, usually when you leave, it's, it's bad taste in your mouth, you're kind of parting ways. But with Andy and everything he's done while we were there, and then to leave to see from what he took us from, like we were 2-14 at one twice. Yeah. And, to go on the runs we did. And then after the guys left, and to see what Patrick and what he's doing there with Kelsey, you can only be a proud Chief at this time. That's watching it. And for my part, any way I can contribute, the organization. But Clark Hunt, he gave us his number. We can call him. You have this personal relationship with the owner. So I like it.
It's been amazing. And Tamba, you were the 20th pick in the 2006 NFL draft, fresh out of Penn State, where you would absolutely punish. I love rewatching, there's these clips of the Ohio State quarterback just getting absolutely demolished. But you do so much more in Kansas City. You're on the board of directors at the Literacy KC. You've done that for a long time. You're in the music industry. You're doing flag football back in Liberia. You've never slowed down. When my business and your business, you got to get to the quarterback quick. I jokingly say every year that I only play about 7 minutes and 43 seconds a season. and
you play the whole game.
Yeah, I play. And I think my favorite part when I think about guys, the bookends of you and Justin Houston back in the day, what you guys were able to build and how you were able to utilize Don Terry Poe and Alan Daly and these guys that would pick, crucial offensive linemen, and you would just encroach on the quarterback's personal space. For me as a punter, it was amazing because I realized that you guys can do that on a short field, but if I was able to give you a long field, that was even better because I know what Andy's doing. I know what people are doing around the league, but nobody took the field like you guys did back in the day. You guys, Arrowhead would be a standing ovation while you guys were taking that long diagonal line to the end zone. That was impressive.
It's more impressive the way you pin them down there for us to at least get a chance, to do something. We all know what a bad punt can do, but obviously you putting them down there, even if they have a little bit of success, it gives us a chance to recover. But yeah, we spoke about it yesterday. Taking their field was almost like that was like a culture that we created. You had to run on this field. You can't walk on the field, after Dustin pinned them in the hands.
And I think I knew it was important because there were several times where I got a heavily taped hand right in the chest. And it was you or DJ or somebody like, hey man, keep doing that. It's gonna kind of change the game. I remember something you said. We got to catch up yesterday. It was so good to hear your voice. You said that your strength is going to die out, and then you got to really kind of rest on your technique and that stuff that you've learned along the way. And that brings me to a point when I remember in 2007 when you started bringing jiu-jitsu mats into the facility, into training camp. And I thought it was going to be like a rotational basis, but really you were like the king of the mountain. You stayed out the whole time. You would sweat sometimes more than in practice. And in 2006, when you got to training camp, we joked when DJ the year before was 3 weeks late to camp, not in camp shape because we had 2-3 hour practice a day. And I remember telling you like, hey, this is a marathon. You need to settle down. And you're like, I only got one speed, and that's not happening. I'm going to if I slow down, then the offensive line is not going to be ready for their season. And your work ethic from day one, fresh out of college, and as soon as you said yesterday, I'm not holding out. I'm probably sitting in my car outside of the fields, just telling me when I can go to work.
Well, yeah, I used to, like when we talked about it yesterday, just thinking about like, why would I hold out? Why would I, you're giving me all this money to play. People are negotiating for like 10 more million or 20. I'm like, I'm telling my agent, they're ready to give you 25. I'm like, let's go. He's like, no, I can still get more. As a young person, that's the most money you've ever heard of, but the agent feels I'm like, let's go. I want to play. I'm in the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Football, I wanted to be there. We were there, I think 365 for us. Anytime we're supposed to be there, we were there. It wasn't like, had a chance to, let's say, hang out Miami Beach, do different things. No, we were there. Mm-hmm.
You kind of brought up that work ethic, and a lot of guys. Well, Reed and Veach are really good about bringing in guys, recruiting and drafting guys that have that same work ethic. But Dustin, I'm sure you could allude to this as well. It's something that's not necessarily learned. You have to have that in you. What do you think instilled that kind of a work ethic in you, where you were just go, 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 and always, like Dustin said, you haven't stopped even since you left the league?
Well, I think my upbringing. Coming from war, I think and then not being able to read and write, I think it can force you to have to adapt quickly, to figure out how to get things done with the skills you have. And you're not necessarily going to be the best at it, but, not being able to read and write and being thrown in the 5th grade. I mean, with some of the smartest people, and the teacher asks you to stand up and read, and it's so humiliating. You know, someone will stand up with you and read with you. Mm-hmm. You know, it's one of those things I look back, I'm trembling because it's a little emotional for me. Mm-hmm. Being able to adapt to a whole new environment, coming from a war-torn country, it forces you to work a little harder than most, and you always feel like you're behind. Mm-hmm. For some reason, even if people are praising you and saying, you're good, you never can sense you are, because you don't have a history to line yourself against. So, excuse me for a second, let me take a break.
You're great, and you know Tamba is unbelievable. He had such good vets, and Eric Hicks, someone that clearly saw the Carl Peterson and Dick Vermeil, knowing that this was going to be our future edge rusher, mm-hmm. and was able to learn from Jared Allen and be that other bookend, and that really just made our defense more dynamic. And then with what Tom was talking about, I remember having these discussions on the field when I was like, hey, you got to save yourself for the game and all this stuff. He goes, dude, listen, I'm only playing for today. And I think that from fleeing his family, knowing, hey, we gotta flee the Civil War torn country. We've got him to get, to greener pastures and more and better opportunity, eventually getting to New Jersey, and just the things that his family did for him to put him in a better situation was quite remarkable to kind of hear about. And then he's a father of 5. We actually, could you imagine us trying to just eat dinner together, Tom? I mean, we got 10 kids. I mean, you bring over 2 waiters, please. But your ability to father a lot of those younger guys coming in, was unbelievable, and to tutor and work with and tell guys in that interior D line what you need from them every play. And that needs to be on a rotation. You didn't rotate out a lot. You were wanting it on every play because you knew from a timing standpoint, hell, you pulled me over from a kicking mat. I'm getting ready to punt and do whatever else we have to do. And you're asking me how many steps is Peyton Manning taking before I can get to him, and I give him the number, and you go, no way, that can't be right. You go out there, get this massive sack, probably bruises ribs, and you're like, you were dead on, you were right. And I was like, wait, I'm contributing first to third down now? This is sweet. That
was the unique part about, you being a punter. You wasn't just a punter. You had to do, or you did, I don't know if all punters does this, but you had to be there with us. You ran with us. You lifted with us. You did the test with us. You was in the game. Like, you wasn't just there somewhere. You was in the game. So
when you were on the field, you could tell that quarterback that it was a ticking clock, and there was a bomb about to go off.
Yeah, especially that game you were talking about for Peyton. He never gets sacked. And one of the coaches had already, during the week said, oh, if anyone gets to Peyton, they get $100. And I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care about the $100. I want to get to Peyton. But it was so hard to get to him throughout the game. And you're watching, and I'm there. Dustin, you got to tell me. You got to tell me how long it's taking every time the guy gets rid of the ball. And he pump faked it. When he pump faked it, I smacked him.
Yeah.
I'm so nervous.
No, but we're bringing and Hayley does a great job running point for us, and I get emotional too because I see you on the training table and all these guys week in and week out fighting off injury, and you were always great about coming in and saying, hey, there's big differences between hurt and injured. We got to have everybody out of the field, and you don't have a guy like that in every locker room. And for what Andy Reid, when I think about what they have going on, and we didn't have Spags, when you first started here, right?
No.
That's a whole nother animal. I would have loved to seen you and Chris Jones play together, but really you are. When you talk about Felix and George on the field and what you're able to contribute back to that organization, Brett Veach and Andy Reid, everybody over there is elated that you give back as much as you do.
Yeah, it started with George. George, he's the one that reached out and he had really nice things to say. It's like, I've watched you. I really want to learn a lot. I want to learn anything you can teach me. And I was like, I felt, that was pretty cool, especially from a chief. Most, a lot of guys don't have that kind of humility. Mm-hmm. And then George and I, we worked. He's very persistent. He wants to know. He wants to learn. We worked an entire year and this year. And then I reached out to Felix, and he was in Tampa, and we got him down. And what's really remarkable is that these guys are huge, big guys, just like I am. And we bring him in the jiu-jitsu room with my master jiu-jitsu master practitioner, Dave Smar. And we bring a smaller guy, like really small, and put the smaller guy on top of Felix and George, and they can't get out. Yeah, so then they realized you can't just rely on his strength. You really need to know technique to beat people. Mm-hmm. So it kind of awakens another beast in the man, knowing that even a little man can hold them down. So what could they do? Mm-hmm. They could do something, remarkable with their talents.
And Tamba, do you see that going also, on the football field, how much technique also matters on the field, right? You might be the biggest guy, the strongest guy out there, but it doesn't really matter unless you are on your P's and Q's. Have you seen that jiu-jitsu training kind of help those guys like Felix and Anudike-Uzomah and Karlaftis on the field specifically?
It has. The mindset is really the key. You work the technique over so you can make it second nature. But your mindset, playing the game within the game, knowing how to beat your opponent, how to set them up throughout the game. Because you're not going to get every, we lose like at least 95% of our rushes. I want to give us at least 5%. But yeah, we lose at least a lot of our rushes we're going to lose. But this machine turning in your head dynamically, realizing it's like you're learning. You're picking up things throughout the game, and you will beat the guy because you figure out how to set him up.
Yeah, when I watch Chris Jones play, that's a guy that is he's super twitchy for his size. He has the length. He has just that ability just to absolutely bull rush you. When I see George play, and especially after I started hearing that you were working with him initially, is he has the vision for the down and distance. What are their tendencies for those down and distance, and what could potentially happen? I know I'm rushing the quarterback, but these quick passes, your Tom Brady's, your Peyton Mannings, these guys that have the capability and really the timing with the receivers to get the ball out quick. And you can tell he is playing with your vision. And that's something that Justin Houston had, but not to your ability. And I'm eventually going to talk to Justin here down the season because he had a special, unique set of skills all of his own. Your deal was the motor and knowing what the heck the other team was going to do almost every down. That was the scary part about you, is that quarterback knew he only had a limited amount of time, under 2 seconds, where Tom was going to be there, or there's going to be a stunt inside, and I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly working it. We're constantly watching film. We're trying to find an edge. Even if Dustin's over there, we're trying to get him on the sideline to be the lineman that we're going to work it on because we got to get a move done. We're always working together to, at least in my mind, if we work together, everyone gets to have success in the defensive line room or rushing the quarterback. I think it works backwards too. I mean, those guys back there, they do a great job, corners and safeties. Mm-hmm. But those guys on the line, coming from Penn State, Coach Johnson, he basically he wants us to be the hardest worker on the entire. Like we should never like walk or be walking on the field, and I got that mentality from him because I always wanted to be closer to the ball. Make the play.
Was there any quarterback that you took the most joy out of sacking? I know you mentioned Peyton, but was there any specific quarterback that you were always like, that sack feels better than the others?
Well, I like sacking Phillip Rivers. He was the guy that talked. And he was good.
Dustin, I don't know if you heard it, but he loves to sack Phillip Rivers, which I love because, I mean, you know what? You guys do have something in common. 17 children, basically, is what Phillip Rivers has. So all of you collectively probably have like 22 between the three of you. But, you were talking about just like getting after the quarterback and always have the mentality of not walking onto the field, but running onto the field. You said that's something that your college coach instilled in you. And then, we see you doing that on the field for the Chiefs, but then also the players around you start doing it. So to be a leader, to get other people to buy in on that mentality, how did you do that? Was that just a locker room kind of thing or just something that you live by and so others want to follow? How did you get guys to rally around the same mentality that you brought to the field every day?
I think it's just by your work ethic. Some of us wasn't so, I guess, that's the talk. We had to show it in our walk.
Yeah. Or your run.
Yeah, I was one of those guys that pretty much I was going to do what I said, and I was going to be doing it more than I was saying I was doing it. And I think that carries over as you spend time on a team and people start to realize that you're going to do what you say. And if you're asking others to do what you want them to do, they're going to cooperate. And then you got other leaders on the team. Feels the same way. So it's not really just up to me. It's almost like across the board. We had guys that had come in. I remember a receiver, and he wanted to sit down during lifting time. And I was like, I got irritated. I'm like, no. It's like, there are guys here that's making millions of dollars, but they still want to work out. They still want to feel like this thing should be turning, and you're just chilling. So you got to have that kind of attitude because you want guys around that wants to be like what we want to create. Not I want the opposite because it's going to bring everyone else down.
Yeah, I recall in Kansas City, the only time you ever took some time off is when you were drinking water. And you were just gonna let and that's legit though. And I remember that in training camp, the coaches have their lasers out pointing out game film or practice film. And if 11 guys aren't screaming to the ball, Tamba was. And so when they're looking and they're always circling Tamba, it's contagious. One, because you don't want to get called out for not running. But two, Tamba was big on body language. And that goes from everybody. I even had to clean up some of my game because if I had a bad punt, it was so disappointing because they weren't as hyped running down there, even in practice, because these guys, that was kind of their only time to get a break during practice was to watch punt or field goal. And I didn't want to suck at it. And so that was the time where you could kind of like hear guys like, yeah, that's it. That's a bomb, and so that was a fun time for me. But the biggest thing I can say when I watched you play, which I hope and everything in heaven with Felix, George, with everybody that you get to work with and rub off on is body language and work ethic, every play, every practice, you strapped up for 3 games a week because, well, really 4. You did Wednesday practice, Thursday practice, the dial-in Friday, and then game day. It was hell for every quarterback you were playing. And Phillip Rivers is a crybaby. I love him to death. I love
Somebody had to say it.
But hey, my favorite clip ever of Phillip is not of like touchdowns and this and that, is reading his lips on the Arrowhead Jumbotron for all of all over Chiefs Kingdom, and he said, worst day ever. I love that. And he had some bad days with you in that building and at Qualcomm.
Yeah. Philip was really good playing against. So he felt and we had a good team. It was always a fight. It wasn't a push. I mean, I remember games that went to the very end. I mean, where I remember stripping the ball, and that was the only sack. It was the last play. I forget. One of our guys recovered it, but yeah, playing against that guy, you want to play against the best. That's what Andy said. You really do. You want to play against the best.
And the competitors, somebody that's getting sacked and egging you on that you didn't hit them hard enough. And you're like, oh, buddy, listen, I got you. I got something for you coming up.
Philip, wait, would Rivers really say that? He would act like he didn't get hit hard enough?
Yeah, you don't want to talk trash to him. He actually plays better if you talk trash to him.
Oh my gosh, isn't that crazy? Some guy. So what kind of guy are you? Do you want a guy to talk trash to you? Does that kind of get the fire lit, or are you more the kind of guy who's like, I mean, I'm no words. I'm just focused on everything ahead.
Yeah, it's in and out. It's
okay.
Psychology going on. You got to try to soften the guy a little bit. You got to find out what makes him take his guard down a little bit. Maybe you learn that something's going on in the family. How's your mom? How do you know? Maybe his mind's off. Fact.
So next time we see Chris Jones mouthing, "Where's your mom?" on the field, this comes from Tamba.
Yeah, I think when I saw the pocket collapse on a daily basis and what he passed on to our future pass rushers was contagious. It wasn't like every now and again you have like a decent wave on a beach. Every wave was a tsunami. It was a tsunami from Tamba and then Justin, and those guys just collapsed pockets and just made people look stupid. And all the duck unders, the spin moves, and then the second efforts. That's the thing, is that second effort that you would have, which really was a lot of your sacks, because guys thought they could get you once. But man, when you would spin and when you would duck under, that's what guys can't prepared for. And guys like, Dwight Freeney, and there's a special group of guys. There's no wonder why you're immediately on that Ring of Honor. And that was the hope for our show. When me and Hayley talked about this last year, and I said, Hayley Lewis with the news, and we got to have people coming on and hanging out and like talking to the greats that really passed the torch.
Yeah.
And why we've seen like this, this awesome surge of Chiefs Kingdom in the small market that now is one of the biggest markets in the world.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head, Dustin. It started so much so with what built into this pre-dynasty, right? What we have right now, and a lot of Chiefs fans who are my age or younger don't really understand all that came into this, right? All that had to happen before we see the Patrick Mahomes show up, before we have this franchise built. And it started with a lot of, you mentioned it even, Tamba, Clark Hunt, and the organization that he runs. We talked a lot about it with Dick Vermeil last week about Andy Reid and the culture that he brings. And, you were on the cusp of that. You got to see that. Maybe talk about just how important it is to have a front office that is so put together and so one cohesive unit, so that the locker room and the front office are always in sync.
It's a good thing to have in an organization when all the guys that are working together have this togetherness.
Sure, yeah.
When it starts, like, let's say with Clark Hunt, especially when he got in, he was ambitious about what he wanted. Todd Haley was on the rise. After, we didn't have a good show with Herm, so he went with Todd Haley, and again, he wasn't going to waste his time there because things didn't seem to change, and he was ready again. But then, before all of this happened, I remember Mark Donovan being with the Chief, leaving Philly and being with the Chief for several years before Andy came. It almost was like a marriage that was made to happen because he was in both organizations. And then Andy came and that entire culture changed. But the Hunt family, the way they go about their business, it's almost like a family. It's not affecting the team. Like, the coaches didn't come in and just like, oh, let's wipe out this entire team, bring in our guys. It was still like the same core guys that they used from the other drafts and added to it and built the franchise to what it is today. So they brought in other guys and other guys left, and they've created other coaches around the league. Again, I don't want to the names are going to escape me, but
no, you're good. You're good.
You got some front office guys that's there with the Colts that came from the Chief, Chicago that came from the Chief. The names are escaping me, but yeah, you really have a core group of guys that's upstairs that know what they're doing and the kind of group players they want in the organization and the people they want surrounding them. So, yeah.
Yeah, Carl Peterson, I think, was instrumental on bringing in guys, and Pioli. When you see guys like yourself, guys that led on the field, that you could tell like through the draft process, through the Senior Bowl, and guys like you, and I think of Brandon Flowers.
Yeah,
guys like that really we not only found great generational, decade players, but guys that were also going to teach and give back and not just be in the building when they have to be and then doing whatever else. You guys were committed to making sure that the draft pick that was spent on you, just like me in 2005, was worth the money. Like Derek Johnson, we traded our second overall pick in 2005 and got Pat Surtain from the Dolphins because he helped them win. And Herm was committed to building a defense where the year before, or really the few years before 2001 and 2004, it was the greatest show on turf, pulled from St. Louis, heavy offense, middle of the pack defense. And it wasn't until Herm got there that we started seeing a shift in, man, we're spending money and getting great guys on defense because we already have older veteran guys on offense. And that was fun watching you guys kind of come in and change the landscape of saying, oh, no, we're going to be in top 10 in defense, if not higher. And that was not a thing prior to you getting to Kansas City.
It's true.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how all of that, it takes all of that to come together to where things are now. And I'm sure you watch, as much as you can. And I don't know if you watched the preseason games or I'm sure you saw the behind the back pass from Patrick to Kelsey. To see what's happening now, how prideful is that for you? I mean, does that give you a sense of like, wow, that is so cool that I was a part of that? And you get to continue to be a part of it as you're now teaching, two defensive ends and continuing to pour into that next generation, I guess you want to say, of Chiefs football.
Yeah, you have a sense of pride. You're almost like honest. You're kind of in the media, not wanting to be in the media.
Hey, I get it.
Representing a bigger brand because they've created this community where it's extending globally at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you kind of walk around with a little bit of, like we're the Chiefs. And,
yeah, we're a forefather. You were a forefather of
there you go.
Where the program is now, and what I would say is, man, it would be dangerous to see how long we possess the ball per game. And with fully charged batteries, there was times when you and I were playing together, I had 96 punts in a season. And as I was, leaving and Pat was taking over, we were punting the ball 42, 45 times a year. So when you were on the field with less snaps, good luck with that. That would have been a sack fest. McDonald's would have run out of Big Macs.
It's true. I mean, we have great players on the field. At one time, we had like 8 Pro Bowlers on defense, just on defense.
Oh, it was wild. It was like me, Jamal, and our entire defense.
Yeah. So I couldn't.
And Dwayne Bowe.
Take that. Yeah. Can't forget Bowe. Big wide receiver. But yeah, take that defense and put it with Patrick.
Oof. Oh my gosh. I mean, because people, we get sacks. Our defense has been unbelievable. And some of the thing that Coach Spags can do and just be creative and his ability to do so around Chris Jones. But the thing about when you were playing, like, people wouldn't finish games. Like, running backs were hurt, quarterbacks were hurt. Like, it was dangerous. Bernard Pollard coming in and cleaning house in New England really was the only season that Brady missed or any significant time he ever missed.
We were reckless.
Reckless is a great word for the defense at the time, and love to have seen that keep going. But as you know, we get older and we can call in and help out, which you've been doing, which I know Spags owes you a tweet, a text, and a big thank you for everything you're doing for the current guys that are manning that line now.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they have success because it'd be good to continue the tradition. I didn't even know about Derek Thomas before I got here at Neil Smith, but to even be around Neil and to see his attributes, I'm like, man, I'm really below the where they expect you to be to play this position. So the fact that I was able to come in and they acknowledged me as one of the players that did well with the organization.
Yeah.
It's just to continue that. And Jared had it. Jared, when I came in, he's 6'7", big guy. I'm like, well, how did I make it here? Because of trees.
Yeah. And those were the countless hours on the sidelines, whether that was in the off-season OTAs, the off-season program, mandatory mini camp that you're encouraging everybody to go to, and on those sidelines, just over and over, working your arms and doing it and telling guys, you're saying, hey, I need this work, but really you're telling them, hey, you need this work too.
You need this work. I remember, like, my last year, I was placed on PUP. This could have inspired the guys. And this is when Patrick's the next year he's coming to be the quarterback. So I am running up the hill every morning at 6 a.m. Then I'm supposed to be on PUP and doing like pass rush drills. So, and our building faces that hill. So you're watching the guys that come in the building for the next 6 weeks, watching me wake up every morning and run up this hill. So, in me, I'm hoping that can inspire them to know that this is his 12th year.
Yeah.
And this is how bad he wants it.
Did you ever consider, 12 years in the league, did you ever consider leaving Kansas City? To spend your whole entire career here, I'm selfishly very happy you did, but did you ever consider leaving KC?
No, not within me, especially when I met my wife at the time. I think I had a choice to leave. I could have left, and I would have, I don't know if I would have left.
Yeah.
I may have wanted to go to the Jets.
Well, that makes sense. Your ties to Jersey.
Yeah.
Again, the turf is bad on my knees and my ankles, so yeah. I don't know. She kind of, she's like,
you're a lifer. You're a lifer, and I'm glad you had 4 boys and a girl here, and how we feel about Kansas City, or you would still be living there, post football career, doing everything that you're doing. Just what you told us earlier, about reading in front of a group for the first time, and then being able to come down on people's level now for literacy KC, and helping that. That's such a huge staple in the community and something that's needed. Last week we got to talk about the back to school efforts that one of the current chiefs is doing, and we'll talk about that every week. We're going to highlight what guys are doing in the community. It's awesome that you guys like Trent Green, guys that are still very much a part of the grassroots in Kansas City, are still so active in this community.
It's been fortunate for me because I enjoy music so much. I thought I was going to become this like superstar on the stage, doing Afrobeat. But Dave Lindstrom lives like the next street, and he's a former chief. And he reached out to me. He's like, "Oh, you want to be part of the ambassadors?" And I'm like, "What's the catch?" He's like, nothing. You show up once a month to our meetings, and you show up to some events, but it's not hard. And I got with it. Kind of started giving you a direction on how the community works and how people work within the community. And it allowed me to grow a little bit, because life after football, can be a little daunting, especially when you're away from the community of football. That's been your community for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, oh, I don't get to go to the building no more or be with the guys no more. It's cool being with your family, but that gives you a little bit of brotherhood and a direction to how to pursue other careers in the world.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, and I remember I got released in the height of the pandemic, and that was hard, but I remember that I had driven over the same way. I was 143rd and all, so we live almost down the street from each other, and I remember going up Knoll, taking a ride on 143rd Street, and then hitting Wyandotte and hitting 150 Highway and 71 North, and I did that. The funny thing, I did it for so long. I made that drive since 2006 when we moved from the plaza out there, and I would find myself getting on 150 Highway and have to get off at Loch Lloyd and come back because I was driving to the stadium.
You're conditioned.
And I didn't work there anymore. I genuinely, just like you, loved getting up every day and knowing that in the middle of March, I'm going to be freezing my ass off at the training facility running with you guys before the collective bargaining agreement pushed it to April, which was nice. But what did we do for that month? We were still over there.
Yeah.
We went anyways.
We had something, we had something to do. We can keep working on the craft.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. You also talked about your music career. I want to hear a little bit more about that, Tamba. You said that's something that you've kind of been able to dive into a little bit post football. You mentioned you do it all. You produce, you write, you're kind of behind the scenes and on the mic as well.
I am. Everyone should enjoy artistry. The best part to be is that, then you controlling everything. But I love learning. So that part of music seems, after I've delved into it so much now, I'm like, well, that seems very primitive. It's like, oh, you go up there, you're kind of like the billboard. But how do we get to create the billboard is where I am interested in. And how do you write songs? How do you produce music? How do you mix it? How do you do it yourself? You do it and you mix your vocals and everything works. So I've done it for quite a bit of time. I started a label 2011 with just by myself, but then I did something with Gilly the Kid. Did a joint venture with him. He has one of the biggest podcasts today. Shout out to Gilly, $100 million man. So I'm happy for him. So I did a joint venture, released 5 mixtape with DJ Drama, and 3 with DJ Drama and a couple other guys, and 2 albums for Gilly, and then I signed another artist, released some music on him, Stars. He's in Baltimore. I always did music because the way I learned how to read was through Hooked on Phonics, and there was a lot of rhyming going on.
Yeah.
Really gravitated to it, and being from Jersey, rap is huge, so that's all I was hearing. So I did it, and I kept doing it, and my teachers encouraged me, said, don't stop doing that. And I've stuck with it to this day. I do it every day. And I now do it in a different way. In Liberia, I create events, promote Liberian music on my platform. We have a lot of talented people there, but there's no outlet. So I'm trying to be that outlet. We're putting on a show November 29th in Liberia for the artists. Also, I'm working with flag football. There's a lady, her name is Mrs. Woyi Togba. she created flag football, and she's the one that's really pushing the agenda. And I said, yes, I would love to help. I know my time can't be spent in Liberia all the time, but I'll do as much as I can to find resources to help bring the sport to Liberia. So yeah, those are the two different things that I'm doing. And I think music branch with it because yeah,
that's amazing. I just think that like there's so many guys that don't. We talked earlier about like having some hobbies and stuff, and that is just such a good outlet for kids and for people, for whether you're athlete, not athlete, whatever, you know, constructive like pastime and hobby that you end up learning. You're such a student of the game, but for you to have that outlet during the game, as you know, sometimes, man, we are defined and graded on wins and losses. And sometimes those pressures can feel unsurmountable when you have, you know, general managers talking about, you know, getting fired, you know, somebody that you've hung out with forever that gets cut at the end of training camp. And so that is such a healthy distraction. I noticed for you, I know with me, it was fishing and hunting. And, you know, I was with Winchester a lot, you know, especially fishing. And the hunting for me mostly was waking up in God's creation, you know, listening to everything go about their day. And, you know, and on a Friday afternoon, you know, after our Fast Friday practice, it was something that kind of dialed me in. And I remember I had a great coach, just like you had so many good men in your life. Coach Hoffman was one of my
I remember
coordinators, right? I mean, Steve Hoffman he would say, I'm not a coach, I'm a teacher. And man, he was so good. He told us before games, he goes, I want you guys to leave the hotel before you head over to the game, mow your yard, and then be like, oh gosh, I need to get over for pregame warm-up and we'd eat later. Like I was like, there's no way I'm mowing the yard the same day. I don't run like the guys, but I'm not. But it was the mentality of keeping your mind occupied. But then once you cross that white line, it's business, and we got to kill the other opponent.
It's finished. That's it.
That's cool. And too, like you talked to everybody about that. Not only did you do music, you weren't private with that. You shared that with other people, and that was fun for other people to see how you spent your time. It wasn't out at bars or doing anything like that. You were such a good human that you said, I'm going to do something super constructive and help everybody along the way, not only in the building, but I'm going to be spending my time wisely outside of the building as well.
Yeah. It helped me. I mean, I won't lie. I did it at Penn State when I got there. To think I'm new in the country, I'm like, okay, 94, and then 2002, I'm already in college. You know, I'm trying. I'm almost like always boxed in because I'm like, I don't know what's really out there. I know why I'm here. You know, I got to play football, go to school. You know, so you don't really know what's out there and what's happening. So music kind of played a role. You know, in my life, I always try to gravitate. I just didn't go. I'm glad I didn't. I didn't go the route where it was like because I wanted fame or something. Yeah, right. Like I just wanted to learn, and I got to a place where I think they wanted for me to go that way. But I'm just like, if I can learn how to do it, maybe I can express what I want to say.
Yeah, seems like a very good escape. But also coming from a person who seems very centered and have a good grounding in you, that it seems like that was the perfect balance for you to find.
Yeah, and too very easy on the ear, very easy on the ears. And you were always good about saying that. It is fun to listen to, and it's fun because it's someone that you think, man, I only know one tenacious side of Tamba Hali. There's multi-sides. And that was the cool thing about you, is how creative you were with your time.
I try, guys. I try. I mean, I have a wife. She puts up with me. You know, everything. In football, you know, I still scream. I still lose it. It's still real, you know. She's like, yeah, this guy's going to it. What? She puts up with it. It's not even, I can tell you that.
Your laugh is contagious, and I know you would laugh about this. I know that growing up in my house, because my dad punted for the Steelers, he punted at Tennessee where I punted, and I remember, and even now to this day, my wife will do it. We'll have football on, and we're definitely watching the Chiefs, but we'll have a football game on, and Christy will say, hey, there's a punt. And everybody kind of stops what they're doing. They watch the punt, and they're like, oh, it's pretty good. And so guys like you, guys like Derek Johnson, Jamal Charles, guys that we played with, I don't have those guys to watch anymore. And so I'll watch if somebody that my kids if my kids have somebody on their fantasy team, I'm queuing in, seeing what they're doing with this show. I've had to study a lot of extra stuff, guys that we'll be talking about throughout this season. I like our pass rushers, the edge rushers that we're talking about today, but it was too funny. I would love for you to be in our house and watch how we watch a football game. Oh, wait, it's a kick. And then it's kind of like.
So like maybe you guys watch FIFA more.
Yeah, it's the other football, which made me think of it. So remember, okay, we go over to London. We play the Lions, right?
Yes.
Like there's sacks that game. I think Alex had a couple touchdown passes, all this stuff. They're interviewing two people, Cairo and me. That's it. They're like, what is it like to kick in Wembley Stadium? And I know Justin and you're like, what are they talking about? It's only the kickers getting the interview.
Dustin, I don't know what you just did, but you just made balloons come up on your screen. And that was incredible because it happened perfectly in the timing of you saying you were excited about something. But somehow you moved your hands and me and Tamba are just like, okay.
I just remember that,
right.
That's like going to be a core memory because I know Tamba appreciated it because he loves like soccer, he loves the kickers. He loves punters. He gets the special teams. And we're like the setup guys, but I remember Justin Houston was like, why are they talking to these guys? Yeah, but such a big football community.
Justin is the alpha male. He's the alpha.
Well, Tamba, it's been a joy getting to learn more about you off the field than just the accolades that we know you for on the football field. I know that Dustin has had a pleasure of getting to know you more. But these interviews, this podcast, the whole point is to get to showcase kind of the person behind all the stats and the highlights. And honestly, it's your laugh is infectious, but it's also your personality. It's been great to get to know you and learn more about just the guy that you are, the man that you are, the husband, the father that you are. It's really cool to see. And I know we're hyping you up a lot, and I can tell that you're not the guy who wants to take all the credit, but please take this graciously because it really has been great to get to know you and hear more about you.
Hayley, thank you. I appreciate it. I know I was having that out of body experience a little bit.
Hey, it shows you care. We love that.
I'm a bit shy, but once I open up and relax, I can go through it. But I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Dustin. Again, it's nice catching up. I didn't know we were going to have this much fun, but when you get that long, it's always going to be fun. Yes.
Absolutely. Man, you mean so much to Chiefs Kingdom and Arrowhead on that hallowed ground. It was so fun, man, watching you own that place for so long. Thank you for spending some time on Hang Time and Hayley Lewis with the news. She always burns point for us and does a great job. And, I'm looking forward to seeing you real soon. Thanks for everything. And one thing that I'd like to thank you for, too, my wife's a teacher, dad's a teacher, and I think that he really kind of groomed you for that teaching role throughout everything that you've ever done.
Yeah, dad is a teacher. He's a professor. Stepmom, she was always there. She worked nights and day. Teaching comes natural to me for some reason. I want to share with people what I know. I talk too much. My wife said I talk too much, but she listens to everything.
Hey, well, you were in the perfect spot to talk too much, so this was a great place to talk it all out. Hopefully now you're a little talked out and she can have a peaceful rest of her day.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Hayley, Dustin, you guys.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, Inform. KC Sports Network.
Just an incredible interview, not only from just seeing Tamba's emotions to learning more about his childhood to learning more about who he is off the field. And I think that translates so much to viewers because they don't get to see. They see the highlights. They see the stats. They see this guy on the field. They see the energy and the anger that he brings when he rushes the quarterback, but they don't get to see the guy behind that. So this interview was really cool. And to see kind of the personal side, Dustin, I know that was your emphasis on this show, was really showing the man and the person behind these players.
Absolutely, Hayley. And, you did such a great job of running point and answering the questions that I just can't get to or can't formulate because I get emotional when,
Sure.
He gets emotional. And I saw him work so hard in those buildings. He was an everyday guy. There was never where's Tamba? His body language was excellent. He demanded everybody, be on time. Man, when he started bringing out those jiu-jitsu mats, and we would have Joe Kim, who was also somebody that we didn't get into during the segment, come in. He had specialists coming in to absolutely critique that hand-to-hand combat that they needed to get to Peyton Manning's, Tom Brady's that were getting the ball out that fast. So he hadn't changed today. Hayley, he told us that 6 out of 7 days he was grappling, right? He is, he is on that still to this day. And I remember at one point I got cut off a little bit, and he shows exactly who he was, who he's always been. And I remember Brian Waters. He shared with me yesterday on the phone that Brian Waters one time said, "We haven't heard from Penn State in a while," and he said that he lost it. He was like, "Never again." And that's why I said that. I said the only time I ever saw him let his guard down when he was drinking water. We're charging the batteries and getting back out there. So Tom is such a great man.
Yeah, he's the guy who's running the hills at 6 a.m. every single day. And like you said, sparring still. To this day, at 7 a.m., he tells us he's rolling on the mat 6 days out of the week. So incredible interview. If you didn't have a chance to listen to it all, make sure you go back and listen to it because, again, he not only shows insight to the type of player that he was, the mentality that he has, but just also the type of person and the type of person that it takes to show and showcase what he did on the field. So incredible interview. Dustin, you did a great job. You're getting better each and every week at getting those killer answers in there. And I love the perspective that you bring. You are able, I might be able to ask these guys some questions, but you're able to bring the personal touch to this podcast because you can bring that perspective and things that happen in the locker room that we just, as media, we'll just never know. So very cool to see those touches. We'll have another awesome interview lined up for you guys coming on next week. Again, for myself and Dustin. Dustin, I'll let you say anything else if you got any more. But this is Hang Time, and we're excited to bring you guys another episode coming up next week.
Hayley, Lewis, thanks for running point and bringing the news.
There we go. Wrap it all up. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.